Genetic scientist Craig Venter, who made his name by putting a rocket under attempts a decade ago to decode the human genome, has this evening told the world about his latest audacious project. He has copied the fundamental processes of nature, breathing life into a simple microbe. It's being hailed as landmark work by his peers in the challenging new field synthetic biology, but condemned by others as little more than hyped-up chemistry aimed at wooing investors. I'll be speaking to Dr. Venter in a moment, but first here's our science editor, Susan Watts.
It's a world first, a living cell driven by synthetic DNA code put together by a computer. This new cell, nicknamed Synthia, is a milestone for science, and if you believe the razzmatazz, the dawn of a new era. It's the work of Dr. Craig Venter, the controversial scientist famous for developing the super-fast technique that helped crack the human genome 10 years ago.
We're here today to announce the first synthetic cell. So this is the first self-replicating species that we've had on the planet whose parent is a computer. It also is the first species to have its own website encoded in its genetic code.
Dr. Venter and his team had already pieced together tiny snippets of DNA that in a string represent a synthetic version of the genome of a microbe that's found in the wild. They'd successfully inserted that DNA on the back of an artificial chromosome into a second, naturally occurring microbe with its own DNA stripped out. Now they've booted up the combination and shown that it behaves just as the inserted DNA code tells it to, including that fundamental of life, making copies of itself. The aim eventually is to add other functional pieces of DNA telling a synthetic organism to carry out specific tasks to order, such as cleaning up an oil slick or nuclear waste. But the big bucks are likely to be in new fuels. BP and Exxon fund Dr. Venter's work. There are billions of dollars going into this around the world. This is a vibrant science in the UK too, and here at the Royal Society, a focal point of British science for centuries, they're talking about how best to liaise with scientists overseas, not just in the US, but also in China, where their Race for Life programme is already underway. But should scientists do something just because they can?
It's important for scientists to ask big questions. We have a new way now to think about where life came from, because evolution is a very slow process, and this speeds it up. So we can now study evolution in a way we couldn't before. And that, it seems to me, is a question that was well worth asking and well worth trying to answer.
This area of science is so new and considered to be so important. There's not one but two meetings on the subject in London today. The first back there at the Royal Society, and a second looking at marrying these artificial life forms with emerging engineering technologies. The idea being to create applications in areas as diverse as biological machines and synthetic body parts.
Where it's going is to produce, in my view, a new industrial revolution. So we now have the technological tools to really do things, coupled to the fact that we are now in synthetic biology bringing together biology and engineering. And once you bring engineering into this, then what you're talking about is an industrial output.
Critics argue that we have not yet learned how to weigh up the risks of letting loose such novel organisms. Others are suspicious of what they see as science playing God.
I don't think Craig Venter's playing God. I think he's being very human. He's trying to get more money invested in his new technology, and he's trying to avoid regulation of the downsides. This is based on very speculative benefits, but there are real concerns about how new microorganisms might reproduce in the environment and potentially do harm. So we'd like to see a moratorium while both those issues are debated.
But even those who see money to be made or real potential for good in this work would agree. Society will have to get up to speed fast if it hopes to question what science is now offering.
Susan Watts. Well, Craig Venter joins us now from Washington. Craig Venter, first of all, are you playing God?